Right now we get to apply what we've learned for order of operations, interpret numerical expressions. Mrs. Katz's family is planning her family, or Mrs. Katz is planning her family trip to the museum. She made a list of the expenses. Then she wrote the following expression to show how she can calculate the total cost. How many people do you think there are in the family, and how can you tell? This one's kind of easy because all this information combined are the expenses times 6 people. And how can I tell? Because this 6 is distributed between all the values. I could rewrite this and say, or maybe her ticket price plus 6 times $8 for whatever, the IMAX movie, plus 6 times $12 for the, I don't know, the interactive show, plus 6 times $3.50 for an Italian ice. So I'm distributing the 6 over 4 different values. So I figure out there's 6 people in her family. Okay. So we're interpreting, we're taking a look at expressions and trying to figure something out from the math. So how can you interpret numerical expressions without evaluating them? So you notice I didn't solve that one, I just interpreted. Jimmy's clown costume requires 7/8 plus 1/2 plus 1 3 yards of fabric. His dad's matching clown costume requires 3 times 7/8 plus 1/2 plus 1 3/4 yards. How does the amount of fabric needed for the dad's costume compare to the amount for Jimmy's costume? You can say it compares because it's 3 times as large, 3 times more. So dad's costume requires 3 times as much fabric as Jimmy's costume because we are multiplying 3 times what Jimmy's costume takes to complete. So let's see if we can solve some of these on our own. The number of yards, well, we're not solving, we're just explaining. The number of yards of fabric needed for Rob's costume is 7/8 plus 1/2 plus 1 3/4 divided by 2. How does the amount of fabric needed for Rob's costume compare to Jimmy's costume? Explain. So Rob must be tiny because we're dividing all his information by 2, and it appears Rob is half, he needs half the amount of fabric. Rob is half as big as Jimmy. And remember, the dad was times 3, and Rob is divided by 2. Without doing any calculations, explain why the following number sentence is true. Explain why the following number sentence is true. There we go. Without doing calculations. Well, let's double check. And this is really important in your notebook or on a piece of paper. Look at what's the same. We're multiplying 413 times 7, 413 times 7. So that, you can actually get rid of that information right there. And 14 is greater than 6, so we know it's true. The values that are the same, we can just get rid of, and then we can just look at the values that are different without even having to solve it. We know that 14, the left side is larger than the right side. Tricky. Without doing any calculations, describe how expression A compares to expression B. So when you look at A and B, you want to look at what's the same and what's different. Well, they both have this, but A also has that. So we could say A is 8 times larger because it had 8 times. In 4 and 5, without doing any calculations, write greater than, less than, or equal to. Again, look for the information that's the same on both sides and get rid of it. And then we're comparing 7 to 22. We know 7 is smaller than 22. Look for information on both sides and get rid of it. And 8.2, 8.2. So these guys are equal to each other. Have fun.